Thank you, Andy. I don't know if you guys noticed, I'm talking tonight. Preaching tonight, I guess. David is not here tonight. Yeah, I know, sad face. He is in Texas. He's there with the church he's going to, talking with them, getting some things sorted out. But that's okay, because I'm here. I'm just kidding. How are you guys doing? It's good to be up here. It's been one of those days today where just everything, is just like everything that could go wrong does go wrong. And you're good. I know we made eye contact right there. You're good. But it's just one of those things, and as I'm trying to get up here, and as I'm looking at my notes, I'm like, I totally have my introduction planned out. But I want to preface with something else. That when I was preparing this message, and whenever people were coming up to me today, or when I was telling people that I was preaching today and trying to invite them to come, and they were like, "Oh yeah, what are you preaching on?" I was like, "Jesus," and they're like, "And?" I was like, "No, seriously, just Jesus." And they're like, right. And you follow that statement. That's the church answer, Chris. Good job. But it's true. Tonight we are talking about Jesus and who he is. That is our goal. And you're like, "But Chris, last time this round, of the year, we talked about Mark. I don't know if you knew this, Chris. Mark is the gospel. You actually preached some of the messages. But that still doesn't change the fact that when we enter this room, when we come into Vista Grande Baptist Church on Wednesday nights to do worship and to hear a message, and starting up soon and come next year, we're going to go downstairs and actually do Bible studies and stuff and get with each other. But when we come into this moment, we are not here to meet with our friends. We are not here to talk and converse. We are not here to spill out our bad comings of the day. We are not here to complain. We are not here to do anything but contend, defend, protect, and proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. That is why we're here. That when we worship, we're not just singing a song and be like, "Look at how good I sound," right? We are not here, and I'm not here to come and present you this knowledge to make me sound awesome either. We are here for him. And sometimes we lose track of that, especially in the hard times. I'm pretty sure some of you guys, tonight, you could say that, as we're drawing near to the end of this semester, and you're like, "Dude, we only got 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks left, and we're just going to plow through. Get those finals. That's what I'm doing. Just destroying my finals. A's on all of them. But as we're approaching this end of the semester, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of us in here who could say this semester may have been the hardest to date. Whether it was school, because you're taking a load of classes that you have never met before in your life, and you're like, you say words to me, and they're just, what? X plus Y, those aren't even numbers, right? They don't equal anything. Z? Some of you, it might have been home life, right? Where you just come in and as soon as you're getting ready to open the door, you're like, "Okay, protection up, put on the football mask, let's do this." And you get ready and you're just trying to get from door to your room as fast as possible to avoid the chaos that takes place every night. For some of you, maybe it's a job. And you're like, I know I need the money. I know I need to take care of things. I know I need this. And this is a blessing, God, thank you. But I hate it. My boss. I'm not saying from personal experience. Oh, I like David. For some of you, it's here. For some of you, coming in this building right now is a struggle. Because we all know there's going to be change, right? And we don't want to get ready for that. We don't want to brace for that. And for some of you, it's A, B, C, and D. It's all of the above, right? And it's gripping you and it's tearing you apart. And you don't want to admit it sometimes, but really when it comes down to it, this semester's been hard, right? Right. And usually at this time of the year, we start getting ready for our Bible study series. I don't know if you guys remember last year, but we only had like 1 week before we had it was like Freedom 1 week and then like Christmas party and then we were like done for the year. And with that 1 week, we kind of like set up an intro to the Mark series. You guys are going to be studying, it's Thessalonians, right? Yeah. You guys are going to be going through Thessalonians come January. And you're like, oh, and then we're setting up for Thessalonians tonight. No. We had these 2 awkward weeks. And that's what I want to call them. They're awkward. And with these 2 awkward weeks, David gave them to me and Michael, and next week Michael's talking. And so me and Michael, when we were coming together, and we're like, okay, dude, we should actually coordinate what we're talking about, and not me, like, give you, like, something about, like, I don't know, like, Ezekiel or something like that, and then, like, him give you, like, only Revelations 21, and, like, that's it. And you're just like, dude, what? We actually wanted to plan together, and I was, like, trying to come up with, like, all these plans. I was like, oh, we could do, like, Christian apologetics. It would be really awesome, Like, I don't know. We could do, like, and I was just coming up with all these things, and as I came up with my idea, I would just be like, no, that's stupid, And I was like, what do you want from me? And so finally we got together, and Michael raised this question, for lack of better terms. He didn't say these exact words, but follow me. He said this: who are we as Christians, as the church, within our culture? Who are we? That when we enter a room, whether it's here, at school, at home, when we enter a room, who are we? And the easiest answers as Christians would be followers of Christ. We follow Christ. I mean, he's in our name. Christian. But that doesn't seem sufficient. That doesn't seem enough. Because if we're Christ followers, and when we enter a room, people need to be like, oh man, there's a Christ follower right over there. There needs to be connotation behind that. There needs to be movement behind that title. That we can say we follow Christ, but are we just following his teachings? No, we are not followers of the Rabbi Jesus. We are followers of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. That when we enter a room, who are we? And so next week, Michael, he's going to talk more about what is the church, who is the church, are we the church, what is a Christian? But today, before we can even move to that, who's the head of the church? And who is he? We need to know that before we can even define ourselves. Right? Right? Yeah? I'm like getting one yeah from over here. That's it. But who is he? And so I want you to understand something. When we come into this moment tonight, I'm not here to give you a history lesson on Jesus. I don't need to do that. Some guy, he's in Miami or something like that. His name's Edwin Yamaguchi. His job is to line up information of how much we have about each person in the entire world of history. Jesus, as he said it, is the most. We have more historical evidence for Jesus than anyone else ever. So we don't need to argue that he existed. I don't need to prove that to you. If you just no one can come up to you and be like, Jesus didn't exist. Yes, he did. We have more evidence for him existing than anyone else. Fact, the Encyclopedia Britannica uses 28,000 words to explain Jesus. That's more than Caesar. That's more than Cicero. That's more than Augustus. That's more than Alexander the Great. And those guys were all real. Jesus gets more than him. I'm also not here to teach you guys how to defend Jesus. I'm not trying to amp you guys up so you're going to go into school tomorrow and be like, hey, Jesus is real and I want to tell you all 15 reasons why. I don't want to do that either. We're not, we're not doing that tonight. I want us to answer the question, Jesus who? Jesus who? But before we do that, since we're talking about the world, and since the world wants to look at him historically and scientifically, well, who does the world say he is? And I'm going to read you some stuff. So, brace yourself. Get ready. Hinduism. These are other religions. So, Hinduism says he is an avatar, the incarnation of Vishnu. If you don't know what any of that is, when I say avatar, do not think blue people. Or a guy with an arrow on his head. Okay? Vishnu's a god. Moving on. Buddhism. He is the enlightened man. That he was gifted with this knowledge and was enlightened above all other men. That's what Buddhism says. Judaism says either he is a false Messiah or he is a good but martyred teacher. Islam, get this one. This one's good. One out of 124,000 prophets born of a virgin, not the Son of God, a sign of God. One out of 124,000. Jesus is not alone. Fantastic. Scientology, for all you Tom Cruise fans out there. Woo! Mission Impossible, yeah. Love that movie. This one's rare, okay? In Scientology, Jesus isn't even in the equation. He doesn't, exist. He's just they know he's real, historically, but, he's not even part of the religion. Mormonism, separated from Elohim, that is God, created with a sexual union with Mary. So it was literally God hooking up with Mary in Mormonism, and he's not God. He is God's son, but not God himself. Jehovah's Witnesses. Those are the guys that go knocking on your door. And I really want you guys to catch this one, okay? The firstborn creation. The firstborn creation, the firstborn being. He was the first created being of all beings. And in fact, before he was even Jesus, he was Michael the Archangel. And Michael the Archangel became Jesus, and then we're not getting into it. It's nuts. I have a lot of notes. So. Yeah, and then if you're an atheist, he's no one. Right. But here's the thing, is that, guys, that's not even scratching the surface of who people say he is. Those are the main people in the world, but there's so many more definitions. Each individual person can define him separately. But there's this law that exists in the world. It's called the law of non-contradiction. That something can't be both one thing and another thing at the same time. You can't have one cannot be two at the same time. If you have one, this one is not two. It's one. It's one. It's one, Aaron. Okay. 1 + 1 = 2, but that's still 2. You can't have one thing and it be the other thing. So you can't have these people say that Christ is a good prophet and he can't also be who we say he is. But who do we say he is? I want you to catch something, that out of all these guys, we give him the highest stats. That if Jesus was a baseball card, he has the highest batting average, and he plays all the positions by himself compared to everybody else. He's a one-man team. He don't need no one else, okay? That is this Messiah. But this also raises the other question, that if we have this law of non-contradiction, if we give him number one stats, and these guys give him, down here, who's right? And how do we know? But we're not going to scientific evidence. We're going to prove him with the Bible, because every other religion, guys, doesn't really use this to prove him, and we do. And that's what I want us to look at, guys. I want us to catch something, that he is the highest, not because we say he's the highest. He is not who we say he is because we say he is. He's who he says he is because he says he is. Do you catch that? That alone is like, but like, don't you need witnesses? If you guys were here on Sunday, we talked about this. But he says he is. He gives himself the highest stats. He printed his card. And if he says that's who he is, then that's who he is. No one knows you better than you, right? So, with that being said, I want us to open up to Colossians 1, 15 through 20. We're going to break this down verse by verse, okay? He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Stop there. Go back. Stop there. Dude, we're He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Some of you, like, red flag is going up right now. Some of you guys, you're like, wait a second. Didn't the Jehovah's Witnesses, didn't they just say that word? What are you talking about here? Let me break it down like this. Like, this is one of those words that, like, people get really caught up on. And I want to break it down like this for you guys. That when they say he's the firstborn, they say he's not God. But we know that he is God because he is the image of the invisible God. But we're also the image of the invisible God, right? Genesis says that. We are created in God's image. He took dust and he breathed into our nostrils and gave us his image, right? So you're like, okay, continuing on. He is the firstborn over all creation. He is you got me there. But when people read firstborn, this is how you guys are reading firstborn. You're reading first/born. And you're losing its meaning. It's the same thing as if someone was learning English and you gave them the word driveway. Drive is to get in a car and move and drive it and turn it on, use the ignition, and go. Way is a direction, so we can assume that a driveway is a place where a car moves fast. Please do not use my driveway that way. You will take out my garage door. Another example would be the word awful. That awe is to be in wonder of something, that you see something and you see its splendor and you are just taken away in awe of it and you're just like, this is amazing. And then full is to be to the brim of and to be overwhelmed with and to be completely just immersed in. So awful means to be completely full of this marveling, this thing. And so awful, and you're like, no, dude, when I said that cheese was awful, no, it stank. Nuh-uh. And so taking this word, firstborn, and reading it like first/born is wrong. That back in this time, the firstborn of a family wasn't always the firstborn, wasn't always the one that came first. The father got to designate who the firstborn was. That the firstborn, when the father designated someone as the firstborn, that person received all of the father's inheritance, the best portion of the inheritance. He got it, he controlled it, he knew what it was about. We know this because we can look at Joseph's story. Joseph wasn't the firstborn. He was like the lastborn. And he still got the robe of many colors, and he's like, yes. And he's like commanding like Judah around and stuff. He's like, hey, you should clean up the field for me because I have the robe. Another thing we can look at is that God in, I think it's in, where is it? Looking at notes. In Exodus 4, God calls Israel his firstborn. We also know that's not true. Israel was not the first established city-state. There was many before it. And he calls him the firstborn. So we're like, but that's not true. And it's the same word here. We also know that God called David his firstborn in Psalm 86, I think, which we also know isn't true. David was the lastborn. Where you're like, well, David was like the first king of Israel, I guess. That's also not true. He took over some other guy's job. So looking at this, he is not just the image of the invisible God because we are that. But he is also the firstborn, that he receives everything. And why? Verse 16 and 17. For by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and for him. Catch that. All things were created by him. So he saw the idea and he's like, mine. But he didn't just make it and he's not like he made everything and then gave it over to Kayla. He didn't make everything and then give it over to James. He didn't make everything and give it over to Jeremy. He didn't make everything and give it over to anybody. He made everything for him. So everything is his because he made it and he wanted it. If that's true, if you just stop at verse 15, read it like first/born, and don't continue to this verse, then he's no one. But who can do this? Who has the power? For by him all things were created, all things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or power or rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and for him. Verse 17, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Catch that. Everything is made by him. Your smile, made by him. Your bad days, made by him. Those mountains outside, made by him. The sky, made by him. All those things also, your smile, your frown, your whatever, made for him. And catch this, the reason you can smile, the reason you can think, the reason you work, the reason you don't just fall apart is because he holds all things together. If this is true, then we don't need to go any farther. Because we know he's already God. But there's God is God, and they can't be equal in power because they can't contradict each other, so therefore they must be the same. For he is before all things. He is around all things. He is omnipotent, omnipresent. And in him, all things hold together. That people are trying to figure out, well, why do molecules hold together? Right there. That alone gives us the entire image of he is God. And if you don't believe me, if you want backup for this, because you're like, well, Paul wrote this, I don't know if I trust Paul. He's not exactly the most holy. He killed people. Well, then let's go ahead and go to John. John 1 through 5. I'm sorry I'm making you jump around like that. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Pause. When it says Word, it means Jesus. So let's read that again. In the beginning was Jesus, and Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. That reads kind of weird, but it's true. Continuing on in verse 2, he was with God in the beginning. He, Jesus, was with God in the beginning. So if he was there in the beginning, which this says, then that means that it is possible for him to have created all things because he was there before all things were. That he can't just be the firstborn because then God would have been the first one and he could have created all things. But if Jesus was there at the same time, he could have created all things because he is God. Verse 3, through him all things were made. See how I tie those things together? Great. Without him nothing has been made. That nothing was made that has been made. It reads so weird. Continuing on. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light that shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. So what we are at already in Colossians, and we're not even through what we need to get through in Colossians, what we've read already looks very similar to what John wrote in John. So before we even continue on, because guys, we're not even halfway through. We can already understand that Jesus is a pretty big dude. Yeah. Words messing with me. Pretty big dude. That he has to be equal, if not the same as God. That we have to understand that he was born like none other, he lived like none other, and he rose and died like no one other. That he created all things, he is in all things, and he holds all things. If that's true, that alone makes him worthy of your praise, because he is far beyond you already. But there's so much more. Can we go to Colossians 1:18? That's verse 15. There we go. And he is the head of the body, the church. We'll get into that next week. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. Keep going to verse 19 through 20. We're just going to finish this. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by the making peace through his blood shed on the cross. I want you to go back to verse 18. There's probably another word in here that should have caught you. It was that firstborn again. But this time, he's not just firstborn. He's firstborn from among the dead, which you're like, that contradicts each other. Because birth and death are opposites. They can't be born and dead. Is he a zombie? No. Then I want you to catch this. This time, firstborn from among the dead means this. That if he was before everyone else, that he was the firstborn among all creation, and he's the firstborn among the dead, that means that he is the first one ever to truly rise from the dead. That he took on all the inheritance of the dead, gave it to himself, and conquered it. Do you hear me on that? Do you hear me? That alone is amazing. You don't believe me? You don't get that? Let me catch that with you. That he saw our problems, that we are all beings of death. We all have a common problem, that is sin, that brings us to death. And he is the firstborn from the dead because he saw our death, took our death from us, and conquered it. There's a story, I don't know if you guys know this at all. It's older. Have you guys ever heard of a Lear jet? Yeah, some of you are like, yeah. Some of you are like, no idea what you're talking about. All I heard was jet. That's what a Lear jet is. A Lear jet was created by this guy, William Powell. Yeah, William Powell Lear. Created by this guy. He created it in doesn't matter. He created these jets, and the reason he created these jets is they're those really small jets, and the purpose is for only super rich old people to have them, so they can fly across the country really fast and not have to bother with anybody else, and they just go and they deal with a business meeting, and they're like, yes, and then they leave. That's why he wanted them. That's why he invented them. He saw the market for it, and this guy, he's William Powell Lear, he's like, dude, I'm making these jets. And it took him a while, and after a while, he got his first customer, and then he got a second customer, and then he got 7 planes out there, and that was huge because there were big names that were buying his jets, and he's like, yes. And then as he's starting to gain a name, as Lear jets are becoming number one thing that rich people want, two crash. Two of his planes he designed, he made it, crash. And usually, when you see something you're responsible for that you made, and it explodes or just messes up, I don't know about you guys. I do art. I don't know if you knew that. If you do not knead clay properly and you put it into a kiln and there's an air bubble in it, it just goes. And it doesn't just go, it takes out everyone else's art too. It's just like kamikaze, World War II. And usually when stuff like that happens in your life that you're responsible for and you see it self-destruct, you usually look at it and you're like, that's clearly not my fault. Someone came in and sabotaged my work. They purposefully put an air bubble in there, wanted it to kill over so they could destroy everyone else's work. That's why their piece is the only piece that survived. They knew. They knew. William Lear didn't do that. He didn't look at it and just be like, clearly it's pilot error. They're the ones driving it. Their fault. Flying it, thank you. It was on the ground for a bit, you know. He didn't look at it that way, though. He did not look at it and be like, it was their fault, you know, oh, it was weather conditions, oh, it was this. He didn't do that. He looked at it and he's like, I designed this. I want to figure it out. I know it better than anyone. I made it. And so what did he do? He took a Lear jet, went up into the sky, and did everything in his power to recreate both of the crashes. And he succeeded. He didn't die, but he recreated the perfect situation of each of those problems. And like the plane was going down, he's like plummeting into the ground, and he's like going down, and he's like not even freaking out. And he's like, oh, there's the problem. And he like flipped the switch or whatever, and he was fine. Our God's the same way. You're like, I'm not following it all. If all things were created by him, that means you and I were created by him. And that when he saw our problem, he did not send someone else to take care of it. Yes, he's God, but he's not like, I'm God and I'll send Larry to go take care of it. See you, Larry. He is God, and he saw his creation hurting, and it grieved him much that he didn't step away from the problem. He did not destroy us. He's not the firstborn of the dead because he killed us or left us to die. He's the firstborn from the dead because he saw our problem, saw his creations hurting, and he stepped into the problem. And he took the hurting, and he took the disease, and he took the malfunctions upon himself. And he fixed the problem with himself at the risk and cost of his own life, coming in human form to die for us. Seeing that the grace of God was not even something to be grasped. He came and died for us. That through his blood, we have peace. That's why he's the firstborn of the dead. That's why there's peace through his blood. That Jesus isn't just some new thought. It wasn't like our sin came upon us one day. This is like this ultimate plan. Can you go to Genesis real quick? I want you guys to catch this. Jesus was always the plan. So the Lord God said to the serpent, this is right after the serpent was like, dude, take a bite of the fruit. He said this, because you have done this, that is, made them eat the fruit, Adam and Eve, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on the ground on your belly, and you will eat the dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. I hope you understand that that's the first prophecy of Jesus. That's number one. That Jesus wasn't just some thought that God was like waiting until Daniel, and he's like, I have an idea. Okay, let's do this. No, it was like plan number one. It was plan number one. That when God saw us and he breathed into us and he saw us and he saw that we were very good, you know, everything else was good, but we were very good. I really don't believe he saw that we were very good because he's omnipotent and he knew that we were going to mess up. I don't believe he saw us as very good. What I believe he saw is that through us, there would be this perfect image of grace through him and his love because of his son and because of the enmity between him and our sin and him coming to save us. That he was the only begotten Son of God. That by his stripes we are healed. That is who Jesus is. That he is not just this transcendent being. He is transcendence that became intimate. That he did not stay in his palace. He came down and became a beggar. Not to prove a point for him, not to make him look awesome, but to save us so that his grace would shine. That what's the point I'm trying to get at tonight? You're like, Chris, I have no idea. It's that we're trying to define who Jesus is. I want you guys to catch who Jesus is, because next week we're going to talk about what is the church. And that if he is this, and he is God, and he died for me, if that's who he is, and you're like, Chris, you didn't even touch gospel or any prophecy or anything like that, really. You don't even touch like a couple of verses. But if he is that alone, if he's only, like if we got rid of all the other scripture I said tonight and only looked at Colossians 1:15 through 20, we realize that he is God and he is also Savior. And if that is who he is in your life, that when you enter a room as a Christian and you define yourself as a Christian, you don't just hold to his teachings, you don't just hold to that, you are trying to conform your life actively to him. And so, here's my final point. That in the world, if you ever see a truck cross a small bridge, the bridge bends and quakes. If you ever see a bigger guy go out on thin ice, the ice quakes and cracks. That when a big God enters a small life, it should quake. It should rumble. That when you enter a room, there should be a sound going out of the glorious grace and gospel of salvation, that our God is King, and he is salvation, and he is grace, and he is good, and he is the contender of me, and he protects me. He is the propitiation of my sin, which means he went to court for me, and he defended my case, but he's also the expiation for me because he washed my sins clean. Amen. That as we get ready to talk about what Michael's going to present next week, I want you to think about that if he's entering your life, do you quake? Let's pray. Dear God, I thank you for today. Dear God, we barely scratched the surface of who you are. This message could have easily been double this time, triple this time. You are so deep and you are so wide. You are loving and you are beautiful. You are kind.